Vandaag spreek ik, Michel Daenen, met Harville Hendrix en Helen LaKelly Hunt. Harville en Helen zijn wereldwijd bekend als de grondleggers van Imago Relationship Therapy, een methode die sinds de jaren 80 vele stellen heeft geholpen om een relatie te verdiepen en conflicten te transformeren in kansen voor groei en heling. Ze schreven samen meerdere bestsellers, waaronder het baanbrekende Getting the Love You Want. Er zijn duizenden therapeuten en coaches in meer dan 50 landen die getraind zijn in Imago Relationship Therapy. Ondanks hun inmiddels respectabele leeftijd zijn Harville en Helen nog altijd actief en gepassioneerd bezig met hun missie om relaties te helen en te versterken. Ik vind het een voorrecht om namens vereniging Imago Relaties Nederland enkele vragen aan deze inspirerende pioniers te mogen stellen.
Let me just dive right into it with the first question that I have, which is, since 1988, when the book Getting the Love You Want was released, you've been working with so many couples in so many different countries. And I am just curious, what are you, at the moment when you look back on that, most proud of?
So the most thing that I'm proud of is that we picked up in the 1980s on a very defective model of couples therapy, which I was on a faculty and was actually teaching at the university level. But it really had about a 30% effective rate. And I got a divorce, Helen got a divorce. And so really clear that we needed to, if it didn't work for me and I'm teaching it, we need a new theory. So it took about 5 years, really, of a weekly work to get clear what really worked. And what we learned was that what worked was couples needed to not talk to me and me talk to them. They needed to talk to each other. But that needed to be facilitated by me, regulated by me, so that they learn how to talk so they didn't injure each other in the talking. And as a result of that, little insights that came along, we began to develop sentence stems, which is that I give you a partial sentence to start saying something to your partner, like, is now a good time to talk? Or let me see if I'm getting what you said. Did I get it? And which is an accuracy checkout. That we had to do very detailed micro things. Couples did not like it, but I'm kind of sometimes dogmatic. So I would say to them, well, this is how I do therapy. Do it my way or leave. I'm not going back to the model that doesn't work. And I know this is working because I saw a person who was really dysregulated, got her husband to mirror her accurately, and she became regulated in 5 minutes. And I thought, I had never seen that happen before. There's something about being heard that human beings need. And so over time, what got clear was that you had to go through steps. And the first step was to get it started. And this became clear later on. You needed to always ask, is now a good time? In other words, honor boundaries. Is now a good time to talk? Could we have a conversation? And that you should never start a conversation without permission. And I found that that's a little thing, but couples violate each other's boundaries all the time. And they wonder, how come you're so frustrated? Well, I was doing something. You just walked into the room and started talking, or you took over. And so there's a boundary violation. That's a fundamental reality. We go to war about boundaries. Countries go to war about boundaries. So boundaries were important. So you start off with permission, and then the other person says, well, let me see if I got that. And so that sets up a mirroring process. And that is to say back to the person what you heard them say. And for a long time, I thought if you said back sort of the essence, but that doesn't work as well as word for word. The brain wants to know if you got it. And it doesn't know, if you do a paraphrase, it doesn't know if that's quite right. Those are not the right words. Once the words I said, I used to think, well, that's a kind of a particular mind that has to be, all that specific. No, it's the brain needs accuracy because the brain is looking for safety and it knows it's safe if you got it accurately. So do mirroring, and within mirroring, you do accuracy check. Did I get it? And the person says, well, you got, part of it or all of it. Yes. So that's the accuracy check. And then you do in mirroring, is there more about that? Which is you introduce curiosity, which is something couples I've discovered don't have. They just have reactivity. They don't go, what did I do that made me unsafe for you? That's not something couples ask. They just wonder, why are you reacting like that? So is there more about that? Helps a person know that you are seriously listening and that you're interested in more, and then they can say that. So you do that. And then it's really important at some point to summarize, because the person will have said a lot, and you want to say, if I've got it all, here are the 4 things that I heard you say. And then you do validation. Now, validation is a major shift, because I can be getting you accurately, but I have to say you make sense. And I have to say that in such a way that I'm not agreeing with you. I'm seeing how you see it, and I'm not going to judge it. And that therapists have to help couples understand that everybody makes sense, but everybody's different. And so I can say, I see the way you're seeing it, and that doesn't mean that I disagree with it. It means that I'm getting you. I see how you see it, and I haven't seen that before. Then I have to do that, because I'm always wanting to say, but I don't agree with you. And you don't want to do that. Just say, I'm getting that. And then you go to empathy, which is the third major step. So to mirror, to validate, and then empathy, which is, and I can imagine, given that experience, you must be feeling either the major feelings, mad, sad, glad, or happy. So that's the structure. And then once couples get the structure down, they don't always have to use it in that sequence. I mean, it often works. You'd spend a lot of time if you had to do every conversation through that. But Helen and I is like, hey, Helen, are you available for me to ask you something? So that's a dialogical thing. And Helen says, yeah, I'm available. If you want to talk to me, and that's blah, 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 and she'll mirror me back. We're done. Because I just needed to know, what do I need to get to the grocery store? I didn't need to work through something, so that we encourage couples then to move from learning it as a skill to using it as their daily conversation about everything, but uses the pieces that they need. Because this often I can say to Helen, hey, that makes sense. And she knows I'm seeing how she's seeing it, but we didn't do the whole, 3 things. Mm-hmm. But now she feels validated, and couples even have to learn kind of after a while. This is a new way of talking, but ultimately becomes, Michael, a new way of being. It's a new way of talking that produces a new way of being. And the way I like to talk about it is, and Helen likes this too, we have this thing called from monologue to dialogue, and that human beings have always been monological. I'm the one talking, and you're the one listening, or disagreeing,
it's
or
just
rebelling,
you're trying to
or
survive. And you've never heard of dialogue. So you want to take care of yourself, and you're happy to take care of others, but they've never heard the word dialogue. So,
and so talking usually is this: I talk, you talk, I talk, you talk. But when you add listening to that, then you change that to dialogue, from monologue, parallel monologue to dialogue. That means that you are now not a person down here, and the top down, me that I've talked to, because that has made you unequal. So dialogue makes us equal. We are talking on a same plane. And that is a radical shift in relationships. When I experience you seeing me as equal to you, that removes or decreases my anxiety. Because if I'm unequal, then somehow I have to deal with the power dimension. But if I'm equal, we don't have a power dynamic. We have a connecting process. And that changes the relationship from being who's going to run the show to we're partners in this process like this. But if we're like this, we're always in competition. But if we're like this, we're in collaboration. So the parallel goes to collaboration. The vertical goes into competition. Well, that's a radical change in a relationship. So it's not only a new way to talk, it creates a new way of being. That new way of being means that I honor you, see you, and honor you as a person. And that creates safety. This way, it's always dangerous. The monologue makes it dangerous to talk. Dialogue creates safety so you can talk.
Let me just summarize quickly. We do a weekend workshop for couples who sign up for a Getting the Love You Want workshop. And Harville does such a good job. Like, he organizes these workshops. But just to be clear, Friday night, we ask the couples to learn the dialogue sentence stems by giving each other an appreciation. And when's the last time someone, the couple ever sat down and really appreciated each other? So we teach it on something simple. And the couples are so happy by the Friday. The first session is Friday night, and but by the end of the 3 hours, when we've talked about a lot of things and they've turned and given each other 3 appreciations, they are hooked on learning dialogue. And so then they go to sleep, and we said, now, before you go to sleep, 3 appreciations, and do that every day, which Harville and I do every day. We give each other a couple appreciations for something Harville did that day, and me too. The second thing is the next morning they come back, and now they know the sentence stems. We invite them to convert a frustration into a request. Don't tell your partner you're frustrated. What does the partner do? I don't like that you do this. I don't like you do this. Stop it. Stop it. Well, what about what you don't like? Make an appointment and say, there was something a little troublesome to me about blah, blah, blah. Would you be willing to have done it this way? And could we have a conversation until both of us feel good about this? So learning to ask for what you want, converting a frustration to a request.
That brings me to a video I saw of you on YouTube where you showed how it actually works in your own relationship to do these appreciations, and you could see the power of the two. And while I was looking at that, I was very much impressed by the vulnerability, by the transparency and the openness that you showed, having been working with couples for so many years, that you showed your own process in this way. And I was just very curious, how does it feel to show that kind of vulnerability on a video?
Well, I feel like I am blessed to, how many women get to do what I get to do.
Well, I think that how do I feel? In fact, I've never actually been asked that question before. So that's how do I feel about being vulnerable on the video? Yeah. And I think that well, I know we recorded that because we wanted to record ourselves dealing with our relationship as a teaching video, as a training model. to show to couples and to show to therapists about how the dialogue works. I think so at the time it wasn't a question. We had to be vulnerable, or it wasn't authentic. I had to do that. But what has happened as a result of that was actually something that I would say was a high learning level for me and Helen. It might be for you too, because we haven't talked about this. Is the number of people over the years who have said that the credibility of dialogue lay in our vulnerability on videos. It's like, well, of course that makes sense, but it never occurred to me that I thought we were doing a training video. We didn't realize we were establishing the credibility of the process by being authentic in it and talking about our own personal stuff. And talking about it in such a way that they could see that this was not scripted, that it was us spontaneously interacting. At least if I'm thinking of the video you saw, things of Helen and me, and there's a big blue screen behind us.
Yes, and you showed how it works when you express appreciation for one another.
Right.
It was very impressive.
Yeah. And I think that's was a learning experience that has helped me as a trainer over the years, is just kind of give up trying to be a model and just be real. And then you are a model. You're a model of what you have to be in order to be a trainer. And that is to show people that you may not know this, but we were on our way to the divorce court twice in our marriage, and we have made that public. Public both times.
We love talking about it at a weekly workshop, because we don't want that couple to think that their partner is just is always making mistakes and we made mistakes, and again, we learned to repair.
and I think the learning model there is that people don't learn from perfect models. People learn from vulnerability and how you fixed it. Then that gives you something concrete. But if they thought that Harville and Helen, they've never had the struggle that they're describing or talking about or trying to teach us how to resolve, we're really not credible, because we haven't been in the trenches. It's when you're in the trenches. So we've learned all of this, is that the best way to be a trainer is try not to be a trainer. Just share our experience of what we're doing. So, but we've been in the ditch twice and got out of that. And the learning model for couples is, how did you get out of that? And it got really clear. One way we got out of the first time down was we gave up negativity. The zero negativity process got really clear. We were into criticizing each other as a way of trying to get each other to not criticize us. It's like, how crazy can you be? I'm going to criticize you to get you to stop criticizing me. And that's how crazy the brain is. But Helen was talking about changing a frustration into a request. You finally learn, if you want something, ask for it. Don't complain about it being missing. Ask for it and describe what it would look like if it were here.
Yeah, and turn it into something positive, maybe.
And it has to be turned into a behavior. I don't want you to have a better attitude. I want you to, talk to me with a kind tone of voice. Okay, now I get it.
Yes, thank you for your honesty. I think it's very inspiring, and I guess for a lot of coaches and therapists, it will be valuable to know about the power of their own vulnerability during their work. Let me take a little bit of a different route here now. Regarding Imago, I was wondering, nowadays in society and also geopolitics, we see a lot of polarization happening. People, let's say the least, struggling with safe conversations. I was wondering if you would imagine that if they would be willing to apply the tools that you've been developing in their work with solving issues, what would you envision? Can you share some of your thoughts with us?
You are asking that question at a time when we are going to put together a product that takes 30 minutes to watch. But there are a couple of countries in the world, and one of them is Liberia, Nairobi, and the whole continent of Africa, that, as one man said, it's become a movement. All of us love using the dialogue process. And they are just sort of addicted. And once they learn to do it, it began to spread. And we have a monthly Africa Zoom call that is an hour of the people reporting in what they've been doing, and now they're actually building a building on the continent that's its own training institute.
Building for it, and it's called
Safe Conversations.
Safe Conversations Africa. It's a dialogue. They're teaching dialogue in non-intimate environments, not just for couples,
and
but for everybody.
Zoom, every month it's a monthly Zoom call. It takes an hour, but just the people's tears in their eyes at times as they talk about it, and they don't know that other people aren't doing in their countries. They think, well, this is just, there are two ways to talk, monologue or dialogue. Of course we're going to do it. And it has just spread throughout the continent. And I'm going to try, about a week ago, I thought, listen, no one who has time to watch an hour, I'm going to have excerpts from the good ones, and it'll be a 20 or 30-minute thing to watch. And then there's another in Seoul, Korea. A couple got trained as Imago therapists, but they got trained in dialogue for anyone. They have a college, and they're graduating students who not only Seoul, Korea, but who live in Taiwan, China, and Japan. And then there's one other organization that is going to be getting things out. But anyway, we are honored to talk to you in the Netherlands.
Yeah. So let me sort of flush that out a little more about the fact that for a long time we thought that dialogue was useful only for couples.
And by the way, I have to walk out in just a few minutes.
Oh, you're going somewhere too? Okay.
I have a place.
Yeah, it was lovely meeting you, Helen. Thank you so much.
And tell whoever you live with that we think you're an angel.
I will. Thank you.
So what we are doing about that, we discovered that couples began to use it outside of their relationship, use it with their children. And some would take it to their church and talk about it in a class, or especially some men or people in corporations would take it to their company and work with their employees. And, just using it. What we mean by that is not a program, but just mirror back the employee. Instead of being directive, the boss would become reflective and mirror back. So about 10 years ago, it occurred to us that dialogue should be stripped of all the therapeutic complexity and taken as a skill and connecting skill into the whole world. So we did that. We started and we moved to Dallas out of New York, so we'd have a smaller place to practice, because New York is a big place to get something started. So we went to a smaller community. We did that. So we launched what is now called a global social movement. And the movement is to teach the dialogue process, just as I outlined it, because that's what works. So those 3 steps. And you change it around much, it doesn't work. Those 3 steps, for some reason, works. And that was honed over 30 or 40 years of practice. To teach that dialogue process to 2.4 billion people in the next 30 years. And we think, because the world works like this, monologue, 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 and the polarization comes out of monologue because nobody's listening. They're just waiting till you to stop so we can counter you, or talking over you, or polarizing. And we know how that's happening in our country, and it's all around the world. A huge polarization is occurring. And I'm not much of a historian, but I'm very interested in historical transitions because as a therapist, you have to be interested in history of the person and the couple, but you can also know we all came from a history that created us. So that what I think is going on, and it's my interpretation, is that culture is now going through a huge transition in which this structure, these vertical, all structures, social structures, economic, political structures are vertical. And those vertical structures are not working anymore. And we think that, and we're coming to the end of an age, and it's the end of the age of verticality and of monologue, and that the structures are beginning to go lateral. So they will become like this. And it started with the American Revolution and then the French Revolution. There's a little laterality. We broke out of autocrats, kings, and all those people who used to run the world for 11,000 years were invited, to leave America, and French also invited them off the throne. And we moved toward democracy. And the democracy it's not just a good political process, it's a new human relationship that we all live somehow like this instead of living under somebody. So we're going to do that. As Helen was talking about, we have it going now. It's very dynamic in Africa. It's moving into Korea. We have a lot of locations around. We have 67 different locations around the world where dialogue is being taught. And this primarily was located for couples, but those people also began to understand they could teach it anywhere and took it to schools, took it to businesses, so that we now have about 60, 65, 67 locations where dialogue's being taught. So our response to the current situation is to provide a new way of being in relationship. And we know you don't do that overnight. You do that slowly. It has to erode what is there. But this that is there is crumbling. So we don't have to do anything about that. It's going to fall away. The thing that our president is doing with our system, he's really destroying it. But there's a new thing. You can already feel it in America. There's a new thing, which is that we want something different. And we want back the freedom that we had. We want back the safety and security we had. But we want something even better. And the DEI, which is now being criticized, that made sense. So I think that what we're going through as a civilization is a changing from this verticality to laterality, and it's going to take. I'm giving it a 30-year time. I won't be here at that time probably, but we are hopefully setting up enough structures and putting enough things in place.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the people in the Netherlands of Imago Relaties Nederland, so Imago Relations Netherlands? Maybe a word of inspiration.
We've been over there once before, and there was a lot of energy in the Netherlands about Imago and what we want, and we want to encourage them to think beyond Imago. That's the couples therapy, into dialogue itself as the fundamental thing that we're bringing into the world. Couples therapy is a form of that. And working in corporations is a form of that, working in schools, we're doing all that. But we have to be everywhere. And just to pick it up, that this, we think, is the hope of tomorrow, the hope of the future, is that someday we will live in a different culture, different civilization. And it'll be what we call a relational civilization, not an individualistic, competitive one, but a relational, collaborative one. And then we'll study war no more. We'll have peace on earth, and that's what our goal, and what makes our lives meaningful into our old age is that something is happening. It's not because of us. We've been pulled into it, but something is happening.
Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with both of you.
Thank you, and with you, Michael. Thank you so much.
Bye. Have a safe journey.
See you down the path somewhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much.